Welcome to our deep dive into one of the most notorious and daring heists in history, the Great Train Robbery of 1963. This audacious and meticulously planned crime not only captured the attention of the British public, but also stunned the world, becoming a legendary tale of audacity, cunning, and intrigue. Today, we'll unravel the fascinating details of this extraordinary event, exploring the masterminds behind it, the meticulous planning, the brazen execution, and the dramatic aftermath. Prepare to embark on a journey back to a moment in time when a gang of thieves turned an ordinary night into an unforgettable chapter of criminal history. It was the early hours of August 8, 1963. A Royal Mail train traveling from Glasgow to London was carrying an unusually large haul of cash, over £2.6 million. Put this into perspective, that sum is roughly equivalent to £50 million today. The train had no idea it was about to become the target of one of the most infamous heists ever attempted. The heist took place near Brago Bridge in Ledburn, Buckinghamshire. The Royal Mail train was more than just a mode of transportation. It was essentially a moving bank vault, carrying vast sums of money collected from banks in Scotland and destined for deposit in London. This was no ordinary crime, but a meticulously planned operation that would go down in history as one of the most audacious and skillfully executed crimes of the 20th century. Behind the Great Train Robbery was a gang of criminals led by the enigmatic Bruce Reynolds. Reynolds was not your average crook. Charismatic, intelligent, and visionary, he was the criminal mastermind who orchestrated this complex heist. Reynolds had long harbored a desire to pull off the perfect crime, one that would require not just brute force, but also precision, planning, and a meticulous attention to detail. To bring his ambitious plan to fruition, Reynolds assembled a team of skilled and seasoned criminals, each selected for their specific expertise. Among the gang were notorious figures like Ronald "Buster" Edwards, Charlie Wilson, and Gordon Goody, all of whom played crucial roles in the success of the operation. This was no ragtag group of amateurs. They were professionals, each with a history of criminal activity and a reputation for getting the job done. Reynolds was the leader, but he knew that this heist would require more than just his own expertise. He needed men who could handle the technical and physical challenges that the job would present. Buster Edwards, for example, was known for his ability to handle high-pressure situations with calm and composure, while Charlie Wilson was the gang's enforcer, feared and respected in equal measure. Gordon Goody, with his cool demeanor and sharp intellect, was another key player, providing crucial support in the planning stages. The planning for the Great Train Robbery began months before the actual heist. This was not a crime that could be executed on a whim. It required careful, calculated preparation. Gang knew that they had only one chance to pull it off, and they had to get it right. To ensure success, the gang conducted extensive surveillance on the Royal Mail train. They studied its schedule meticulously, noting the exact times it would pass certain points and the security measures in place. Every detail was scrutinized, from the layout of the train to the number of staff on board. They even practiced their techniques on a disused airfield to simulate the heist, ensuring that everyone knew their role and that no detail was overlooked. One of the key aspects of the planning involved tampering with the railway signals. This was a crucial part of the plan, as it would allow the gang to stop the train at the exact location they had chosen near Brago Bridge. They needed to ensure that the train would stop in a secluded area where they could carry out the robbery without interruption. To do this, they needed the expertise of a former train driver, who was brought in specifically to help with this aspect of the plan. The gang's attention to detail was extraordinary. They even considered the weight of the money they would be stealing, calculating how much they could realistically carry and how they would transport it away from the scene. Vehicles were prepared and stationed nearby, ready to be loaded with the loot and driven away as quickly as possible. Every aspect of the operation was rehearsed and refined until the gang was confident that they could pull it off without a hitch. In the early hours of August 8, 1963, the gang put their plan into action. It was a dark, quiet night, kind of night when nothing out of the ordinary was expected to happen. But as the Royal Mail train approached Bridego Bridge, everything changed. The gang tampered with the railway signals, forcing the train to stop at the predetermined location. Train's driver, Jack Mills, was initially confused and unaware of the danger that was about to unfold. But as the gang approached the train, their intentions became terrifyingly clear. The robbers overpowered Jack Mills, hitting him on the head and forcing him to cooperate. Under duress, Mills was made to drive the train to a more secluded spot, just a short distance away from where they had originally stopped. This was a crucial part of the plan, moving the train to a location where they could unload the money without fear of being disturbed. Once the train was in place, the gang set to work. They detached the carriages that contained the money. This was no easy task. The gang had practiced it many times before. With the carriages separated, they began transferring the cash into waiting vehicle. It was a highly coordinated operation, with each member of the gang knowing exactly what to do. The entire operation took just 30 minutes. In half an hour, the gang managed to steal over £2.6 million in cash, a staggering amount of money at the time. They loaded the money into the vehicles and made their escape, leaving behind a scene of chaos and confusion. The train was abandoned, its driver injured, and its guards left in shock. The gang, however, had disappeared into the night, leaving behind only the faintest trace of their presence. The aftermath. The Great Train Robbery sent shockwaves through Britain and beyond. The sheer audacity of the crime, the meticulous planning, and the huge sum of money stolen captured the public's imagination like never before. The media coverage was extensive, with newspapers devoting pages to the story and news broadcasts repeatedly reporting on the details as they emerged. For the police, the robbery presented an enormous challenge. This was not just another robbery. It was a crime of unprecedented scale and complexity. The manhunt that followed was one of the largest in British history, with the authorities determined to bring the culprits to justice. However, tracking down the members of the gang proved to be a difficult task. The robbers had gone to great lengths to cover their tracks. The police were relentless. Within months, several members of the gang were arrested. The breakthrough came when police discovered a hideout that the gang had used after the heist. Inside, they found evidence that linked the gang to the crime, including fingerprints, clothing, and tools used during the robbery. Despite these successes, some members of the gang managed to evade capture for years. Bruce Reynolds, the mastermind behind the heist, was particularly elusive. He managed to stay ahead of the authorities, moving from place to place and using various aliases. It wasn't until 1968, 5 years after the robbery, that Reynolds was finally caught. The trials of the Great Train Robbers were some of the most publicized and dramatic in British legal history. The public followed the proceedings with intense interest, eager to see how the justice system would deal with the men behind such a sensational crime. In 1964, several members of the gang were sentenced to lengthy prison terms. The sentences reflected the severity of the crime, with some members receiving sentences of up to 30 years. The judge in the case made it clear that such audacious criminal activity would not be tolerated, and the harsh sentences were intended to serve as a deterrent to others. However, the story did not end with the trials. In 1965, Ronnie Biggs, one of the robbers, made a daring escape from Wandsworth Prison. Biggs used a rope ladder to scale the prison wall and disappeared into the night. His escape was a huge embarrassment for the authorities and added a new chapter to the already sensational story of the Great Train Robbery. Biggs remained on the run for decades, living in various countries and becoming something of a folk hero. His life on the run only added to the mystique and intrigue surrounding the Great Train Robbery. It wasn't until 2001, when Biggs voluntarily returned to the UK due to ill health, that he was finally rearrested and sent back to prison to serve the remainder of his sentence. The Great Train Robbery has left an indelible mark on popular culture. Over the years, it has been the subject of numerous books, films, and documentaries, each exploring different aspects of the heist and its aftermath. The story of the robbery continues to captivate audiences, serving as a reminder of the audacity and ingenuity of those who dared to challenge the establishment. the robbery also had a profound impact on the public's perception of crime. While the actions of the robbers were undoubtedly criminal, there was a certain admiration for the precision and planning that went into the heist. In some ways, the Great Train Robbery became a symbol of rebellion against the establishment, with the robbers seen by some as anti-heroes who took on the system and, at least for a time, won. However, it's important to remember that the robbery was not a victimless crime. The train's driver, Jack Mills, never fully recovered from the injuries he sustained during the robbery, and the trauma of the event stayed with him for the rest of his life. The robbery also had a significant impact on the Royal Mail and the railway industry, leading to increased security measures to prevent such a crime from happening again. The Great Train Robbery of 1963 remains one of the most audacious and well-planned heists in history. It is a story of daring, ingenuity, and ultimately the triumph of law and order. While the robbers may have enjoyed their moment of glory, their actions set off a chain of events that would see them brought to justice. Their lives changed forever by the choices they made. Fateful night. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past, exploring the legacy of one of the most famous crimes of the 20th century. Stay tuned for more captivating stories from history, where we uncover the truth behind the headlines and delve into the events that have shaped our world.